Good Sunday morning, Northeast Ohio, as we close out a week of deadlines. The government shutdown deadline, the NBA trading deadline, the candidate filing deadline, the deadline to get questions on the May primary ballot. One of the questions that will be on there for voters will determine how future congressional districts are drawn in the state, a question that will end gerrymandering that gave us districts like Marcy captors along the North Coast. It stretches out over 120 miles. It looks more like the par 5 of a British links course than it does a congressional seat. For all the talk in the 2016 election about Ohio being a battleground state, it was anything but when it came to the races for Congress. Republicans controlled the redrawing of the districts in 2012 and as a result control 3/4 of the state's congressional seats, with all 16 being essentially safe general election seats. Hey, consider this. The closest congressional race in Ohio in 2016 was decided down here in southwest Ohio by a nail-biting margin of 19 points. In fact, 14 of the 16 congressional races in the state 2 years ago were decided by 30 points or more. And that, Governor Kasich argues, is what's wrong with Washington.
All it does is drive people to the extremes. If you're a Republican, you worry about a primary from the right. If you're a Democrat, you worry about a primary from the left. And it just polarizes and pushes us out.
Under the proposal to make the districts fairer, less political, 65 of the state's 88 counties couldn't be split up, and only 5 could be divided into 3 districts. Cuyahoga and Summit right now, for example, are split up into 4. Lest you think this is all being done for the greater good, it should be noted the Republican legislature's plan to put this on the May ballot preempts another proposal to put a different measure on the November ballot, which some felt might hurt Republicans in the fall. Also, this buys the GOP 2 more elections, 2018 and 2020, with the current map. Across the border in Pennsylvania, the courts have ordered that their maps be redrawn and be done by next week for this year's election. And the redrawing of those districts could cost the GOP several seats in Pennsylvania alone. Well, this past Friday marked an anniversary of sorts. It was 2 years ago that Governor John Kasich came in second in the New Hampshire primary. This week we had a chance to catch up with the governor, take a look back and a look forward. Donald Trump may have won New Hampshire as a whole,
but I beat him in Dixville Notch, okay?
Looking back 2 years later, Kasich doesn't like what he's seeing coming out of Washington, but says Americans need to remain focused on change at the local level.
Washington is just really pretty dysfunctional. They can limp their way to some achievements, but it really tells us, and where my head is, let's do what we can where we live. You know, Washington is important in many ways, but in many ways it's not important. Let's build a country from the bottom up and stop worrying so much about tweets and this fight and that fight. I mean, it's starting to get boring.
Isn't that the spirit that holds us together?
The change from the bottom-up theme was one that Kasich preached often in the more than 100 town halls he held in New Hampshire, a state with a population roughly the same as Cuyahoga counties. And while Kasich has arguably met a good number of those voters,
Anybody coffee? Coffee?
Yes, please.
Whether his plans take him back here after he leaves the governor's office, he says, is a question way too far down the road to answer. What are your rough plans as you move forward?
Don't know. I really don't know what I'm going to do when I'm done in this year. It'll be interesting to think about where I'll be in 2 years. I don't know. I am really in a position of where they'll probably roll their eyes, or the Lord's going to give me a sense of what He wants me to do. And that's what I'll do. I don't know what it's going to be.
And while we had Kasich mic'd up, we had a chance to talk not so much about the state of the state, but something that's more important to some people in Cleveland, the state of the Cavs.
I think that the challenge for them is to plan what's the future going to bring. And I think that's what makes it difficult for them, because if they can't get a sense of, is LeBron staying, which we all, of course, hope he does. He's a phenomenal player. He's been a good man. It's kind of hard to make long-term moves, and I think that's where we find ourselves. There's a cast there that can take them to the finals. I believe the finals is going to be tough, but hey, hope, who thought the Eagles were going to beat the Patriots?
I didn't. My Eagles did pull it out. Now the Browns are on the clock. With Democracy 2018, I'm John Kasich. Enjoy your Sunday.